Tonight on Teal Tinted Glasses, we talk about the new Barracuda Arena. We talk about Noah Gregor being signed. We take a look at the Anaheim Ducks. All this and more on a new Teal Tinted Glasses. However, as always, if you want to be part of the show, the best thing that you can do to help us out is to leave us a like, leave us a comment, help us in the algorithm. You can also follow us on all the social media at tealtownusa. You can also, again, talk to us in the chat. We always love having you guys comments in the chat. So looking forward to another exciting show. So far, so good. The show is getting off the ground properly for once, and we're not going to jinx it. So with me tonight is outside enjoying the beautiful weather, Mr. Kevin Lacy. How are you doing, Kevin?
We're doing a show about the Minnesota Wild, right? As I got all the Wild in behind me and everything like that. No, it's I'm certainly not at TechCU Arena right now, that's for sure. But it seemed like a really fun time out there today, and I am just kind of impromptu here. So if you want to know why the show started on time last week, it's because I wasn't around, but you're with me this week. So happy to be on.
Yeah, it's good to have you back on the show. And always with us, it seems never fails to be here, is Mr. Hockey Jerk. Hockey Jerk, I do love the Wild Wing jersey.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I had pulled it out of my closet just for tonight. No, you know what I think is kind of a fun little omen, so to speak? So literally right as we fired up, right as we went live, one of my cats, she was meowing really loud. And usually she only meows like that when she's excited. So I'm kind of looking over my shoulder. I'm like, okay, what the hell's going on here? And she walks into my office, and in her mouth, Kevin, you might know what I'm talking about. In her mouth, she's carrying one of the hard hat stress balls that they gave out from the last time Sharks Ice did a redevelopment. And so
I thought you were going to say a new Barracuda jersey, but
so
all right.
I feel like it's an omen that she's bringing me a stress ball that was given out the last time Sharks Ice did a renovation, and now tonight we're going to talk about their latest renovation. I just thought it was very, appropriate.
I thought it was because you knew this was a very stressful show to undertake. But
yeah, so let's get down to it, because last week I gave you a sob story. I don't have a sob story this week, which is also amazing. The Sharks add Brian Wiseman as an assistant coach, which has been an interesting story because he was originally announced to be a coach on in Long Island, and then he just never worked out. And then John McLean goes there and takes that job, former San Jose Shark coach, who I was told would never find a job because the Sharks absolutely screwed all three of those guys, and yet they all got employed pretty quick. However, wasn't supposed to get a job. So Wiseman comes to San Jose after John McLean takes his spot in Long Island. And because it's Long Island, we'll never know exactly what happened. But yeah, thoughts? Anyone?
I don't have a whole lot of background here on Brian Wiseman.
Same.
I do know his history here. I was actually of the camp, not necessarily the camp of John McLean will never get a job ever again, but if you recall in last year's off season, I wasn't exactly thrilled with McLean and Madden being named assistant coaches. That's why I'm so much higher on the new assistants coming in with Scott Gordon and Ryan Warsofsky, and now also Brian Wiseman. But I don't have a whole it's one of those things where coaching is hard enough to describe on its own, and then when you start getting into the depth of coaching, it's like, oh well, he's a good guy. So I don't know, Jerk, you got anything more than that?
Well, just looking on the surface, I mean, they're bringing him in to be kind of the power play sort of guy, and we know, the Sharks power play has pretty famously been awful the last 3 years, so it's a welcome change on that front. However, I mean, given the reason, the circumstances as to why he may have been let go, from the Islanders so soon after getting hired there. I am a little concerned about that. Just the fact that the Islanders obviously felt that, the issue, his, the accusations that had come out, obviously they felt it was a major issue that they, didn't want to have be part of their organization. And so they let him go. And then the Sharks turn around and pick him up right away. And it doesn't really look like a good move to me based on that.
Yeah, so to elaborate on what Jerk's talking about, Brian Wiseman was accused of a sexual assault as a 19-year-old. Now, I kind of just skimmed over this briefly, so I don't know if I have this right. My understanding was there a settlement, or just never just go to court? I don't remember the specifics, but I think in this situation you just hope to God that the Sharks have done their due diligence, and and we'll see what happens. I'm curious if that is why the Islanders decided to walk away, because I feel like Brian Wiseman's been around for a while. So I feel like it's, this isn't, I don't think this is new information, like the stuff from when he was 19. And I'm not, and again, I don't want anyone to take this as me being like, oh, well, he was 19, whatever, right? Like, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that whatever, I would just hope that the Sharks have done their due diligence before making this hire. But because I don't remember the specifics, I don't want to speak too much, because I don't want to, when you're talking about a topic as serious as this, you don't want to get it wrong. And I don't want to get it wrong. Fair? Fair.
Yeah.
So moving on. Noah Gregor signs a 1 year, one-way contract worth $950,000. He's going to be an RFA with arbitration rights when his contract concludes this summer. Noah Gregor is back, leaving. I think only Noah Gadjevich is the only RFA still pending for the Sharks.
Correct.
Yeah, just Gadjevich, which, I mean, I don't know. I still, if you want to take it all the way back, I'm still kind of like, why did the Sharks ever claim Gadjevich off waivers? But that's a completely different conversation. With no, go ahead, Kevin.
On Gadjevich, I understood the waiver claim. I mean, he was a player who scored, if I'm just spitballing, 19 goals, I think, in 29 games in the AHL the previous season. Like, I think that was a worthwhile claim. But then they put him in a physical checking role because he can do that. So not really playing to his strengths. I kind of with you, he was one of the players that I did not see getting tendered a qualifying offer. So considering the moves that Mike Grier made this offseason, bringing in several young, or not necessarily young, but several depth forwards, and we already had several depth forwards. You got Gadjevich as an RFA. Where does Noah Gregor slot in here, Jerk?
I mean, it's pretty well known that this is the Noah Gregor fan club over here. I mean, my pinned tweet will tell you otherwise, or tell you exactly that. But it's going to be hard to say, because I feel like the way Gregor had finished last season, it almost seemed like it was a for sure deal that, they were going to run it back again with him and with Bordelot and with Balcers. But a little bit of a problem there. Balcers is now on a different team, and for all we know, Bordelot is going to be with the Barracuda to start the season. So it is a curious case. I wonder, like, it seems like Mike Grier's his priority for this offseason was kind of rebuilding the bottom six a little bit. And so with that in mind, I see it going one of two ways. I mean, maybe Gregor is the odd man out. Maybe he finds his way on waivers, or he's a scratch guy, or, maybe we'll all be surprised and he ends up, getting elevated in the lineup just based on what he did towards the end of last season. It's hard to say. I'm personally a big fan of Noah Gregor. I think he's worth keeping around. I mean, especially at such a low dollar amount. I mean, we went through it last year with Noah Gregor as an RFA, and why isn't he signed? And what if it's a lot of money and all this stuff, and then he signs for cheap, and then we come here again and it's the same thing, and then guess what? He signed for cheap again. So if you do have to throw him on waivers and send him to the Barracuda, like that cap hit is completely variable, so it's not an issue. But I am curious, Kevin, like you were asking, I am curious to see where he does end up in the lineup, because I could see him on the outside. I could also see him say, hey, you finished the season well for us. Here's your reward. You're going to play on the top line. You know, I feel like the spectrum is wide open for him, I think.
You want to say something, Ian?
No, go ahead.
Want to jump in.
Go ahead.
So with Noah Gregor, you mentioned the $850,000 that Noah Gregor signed. $950. Okay, still, that's fine. It's not a problem. It's absorbable. And the one-way contract, I think, is the big thing there. I think that's probably what took so long to sign Noah Gregor. And when we say took so long, it was 4 weeks into the off season. So, but. Noah Gregor, I think, was unfairly ostracized by the fan base throughout last season for not taking leaps and bounds. Like, he took steps forward. He progressed through the season, and I think that's what you want out of a young player like that. Noah Gregor was a middle round pick, so he's right where he should be, if not ahead of where he should be for the range he was picked at. I mean, Mike Robinson was a third-round pick, and he can't even get an ECHL contract. So Noah Gregor's doing just fine. And, yeah, he didn't bury all of his chances last season, but Rudy Balcers certainly didn't bury his chances. In fact, I think Rudy Balcers probably had about 1.5 times the number Noah Gregor did, and that's why Balcers is no longer with the team. Jonathan Dahlen, also the second half of the season, didn't bury his opportunities. So it's like Noah Gregor kind of had the opposite season last year, where he did start off slow, but he picked his game up and then became a reliable forward by the end of the season. I have no problem with him getting a one-way deal this year. And if he ends up the odd man out, he's young enough that a team is going to trade for him.
Yeah.
Well, and I like, Kevin, I like that you mentioned Dahlen and you mentioned Balcers. Obviously, we like all these players, generally speaking. Yeah. I think they're all decent players. But to your point, Jonathan Dahlen had 12 goals. Rudolph Balcers had 11 goals. Noah Gregor had 8 goals. So they're all kind of in the same sort of range. Yeah. But you look at the shooting percentages, Dahlen and Balcers were both over 11%, which is above the league, league average. So as much as I like those players, I think you kind of know what you have at this point. Whereas you look at Noah Gregor, again, in the same goal range as those two guys, shooting percentage was 5%, well below the league average, well below. So to your point, Kevin, I think I think
it's the opposite of my point, but go ahead.
But your point you mentioning about how he was unfairly ostracized by the fan base is, if he's like an average player, like that's, what is that, 18 goals right there? You know, if he's shooting like an average player, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like how you're saying, these, there's a reason Gregor's here and Dahlen and Balcers are not, and I think the fact that they had a similar number of goals despite vastly different shooting percentages, I think it proves that you're bang on with your assessment, Kevin, of why one's here and the other two aren't.
Yeah, and I think Tiger kind of brought that up in the chat too. It's like the Tiger says, the Gregor deal feels like Gregor deal feels like if you can't have a worse shooting percentage. So this is your chance to show us what closer to the mean is for him, and I think that's a solid point. I think bring up the shooting percentage. I think that's it makes a lot of sense, right? When you look at it from that perspective. I certainly didn't consider it from that perspective of how does Gregor stick around, because I've been a huge critic of the lack of finish for Noah Gregor, and I was for Balcers and less so Dahlen as well, but I never really I didn't really take a look at the shooting percentage. And it's a really good point, I think, that you make, Jerk, about how, why, like, I still annoyed that they bought out Rudy Balcers. I think buying out Balcers was silly.
I agree.
But when you look at it from that perspective, though, it's hard to make an argument against that.
Well, and on top of that, as I said, Balcers had, Noah Gregor had, he had 8 goals this season. Half of them were in the final 2 weeks of the season.
Right.
And so it just, again, going on top of what Kevin said, if he gets in the right position and he starts clicking, he could end up being forget average, fourth round pick, could end up being a steal for the Sharks if everything comes together. I mean, the speed alone makes him an asset.
Exactly. That's where I was about to say.
Yeah, Tiger's asking, so where do we think Dahlen's going? I guess so. What was the most recent news on Dahlen? Go ahead.
Jonathan Dahlen is probably going to either Switzerland or Sweden because he's. I feel like I've said this year after year. He still thinks he's getting a one-way NHL contract for reasons. So he's most likely going to Switzerland, I believe. Teamro, which is his hometown club, who he put up all those points in the Allsvenskan for a couple of years ago. They, I think, by now have made a substantial offer to him.
I had heard it was a 5-year deal.
I believe that because, I mean, hometown guy, a top producer for the last place club who barely avoided relegation last year. So, but to me, if you're Dahlen and you truly are trying to get that one-way contract in the NHL, why are you going to go be a big fish in a small pond? Like, yeah, maybe you go and put up 30 goals for Teamro and they still get relegated, and then teams start questioning, all right, if you're really that good, why did your team not do much better? So I feel like going to Switzerland or a better Swedish league club would be the best opportunity for him, because then he can prove, okay, I can hang with the big boys on a contending team. Now come back to North America and get your one-way deal. I'm skeptical of that, but that's what I would do if I was him and his agent.
Well, yeah. and you know what? And here's something that I had thought about too. And I mean, we see it every year, but especially, still feeling the ramifications of the pandemic and all that kind of stuff. Like, payrolls are cheap, it's not cheap. There's very limited movement there. Same thing with roster spots and all this kind of stuff. And I have kind of given it some thought. We're over a month into the quote unquote free agency period, and he hasn't signed, to your point, Kevin. But I wonder if, once we get to preseason and the salary cap, obviously gets sorted out and roster management gets a little bit sorted out, I wonder if a team, one of these, what I would say is a good team, maybe, I don't know if I would say elite, but a good team that does need that little bit of extra kind of wiggle room, a Colorado, a Vegas, a Tampa, maybe they take a chance. They say, okay, we got our cap situation in. We need a cheap guy. We can get into our 12 forwards and maybe he'll score some goals for us. I think if he does end up staying in the NHL, I kind of think it's going to be one of those where, maybe a team has to wait to put a guy on long-term injury or needs to wait to send a guy down, something like that.
I'm curious to see, because I think there's going to be a lot of really interesting players getting PTOs this year, and I wonder if Dahlen's going to be one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Dahlen's agent has said that they don't want to make a decision until next month. So, although, I mean, that's a week away at this point, but maybe they're looking for that late contract offer. I mean, it seems to me, and we saw that when we were waiting for Jonathan Dahlen to come back over from Sweden. The one-way contract was always the sticking point, whether he had proven or was not proven to that point. He still wants that one-way contract. So it might be worth the gamble for him, because a European team's going to pick him up like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, if that's really his MO, he might be able to fish one out at the end.
And there's still like similar guys to Dahlen. Like there's still a handful of them still out there. I mean, Sonny Milano is unsigned UFA. Sam Steele is unsigned. So there are a couple curious cases in the no qualifying offer sort of territory. Yeah,
I think Sam Steele, there's outside things going on.
Sure.
There,
but... Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I I agree. I mean, it was an interesting summer because of cap stuff with the RFAs. I think like it was a really, I don't remember a summer where so many guys were like, wow, that guy didn't get a QO, really? Like I felt like that was really, to me, the story of the summer was the guys that didn't get QOs. Like it was just
Well,
more than any other
yeah.
season I can remember.
Yeah, and part of it also with just the globalness. I can't even think of a word right now, but just what's going on in the world right now. You're seeing a lot of hockey players vacating Europe and coming back to North America too. So it just creates this oversupply of talent. So teams were able to afford saying, we see another guy who's pretty similar, like let's say Andrew Podorowski on the last show when you were talking about Seattle. Like he goes and becomes the first 100-point scorer in the last 12 years in the AHL. So Seattle gives him a one-way contract. Like players like that who say, you know what, we're willing to give you a chance because we've already seen some of these other guys, and you know, we don't really, we think we can survive without them. So I think that's why a lot of players were not getting qualifying offers this year. And it'll probably come full circle next offseason, where the players who don't get offers this year end up being getting lucky next year. So
Yeah.
So Kevin, my question for you then, and this is very much tongue in cheek. I don't think anybody listening is going to get it, but I have to
Chris
ask.
Mueller. Or
Yes,
Chris Mueller.
Yes. Yeah.
Three ice tournament. Even some of those guys. Alex Kyle was amazing. He's not going to get an NHL offer, but even the 3-on-3 tournament that just ended for the summer here, some of those guys might get AHL deals, and you never know. Michael Haley came up from the ECHL and eventually got an NHL contract, so it'll happen.
Yeah. Got a question in the chat. Thoughts on which line Eklund might play on this season, or if and how long he may spend in the AHL? I mean,
it's a great question.
I think he's a guy that you start. He's got to be, if you're playing him in the NHL, he has to be on one of the top two lines. You're not playing William Eklund on your third line. So if he's not going to slot in now, look at the Sharks. To me, I joke that, you know, there's a symmetry in having three third lines, because with all the guys they've signed, that's what it feels like the Sharks are going to do. I don't know, man. I feel like, depending on the camp he has, I think William Eklund, I think you start him on the big club and see what happens.
I think you make a good point about the Sharks having three third lines. I mean, as we all know, they spent the last 3 years not having a third line at all.
It's true.
So maybe, to your point, maybe that is the right play. No, I'm with you, though. I think it's got to be, you know, I think it's more than likely he ends up in the AHL, but I agree with you. I think you start him in the NHL, you see what you have just from jump, and then you kind of go from there. And you know, I think it's pretty apparent to me, and maybe this will change, but it's pretty apparent to me that the top line from last year will continue to be the top line going into next year.
Yeah, it'll be Hurdle, Meyer, Barabanov.
Right, and so
I think you shackle Eklund to Couture.
That's what I was going to say, is you find, them two, and then maybe, you know, if LeBanc is healthy, you put him on the other side, or maybe you put a Lindblom there if you have high expectations for him. But I'm with you. I think, I almost wonder if that could be a good kind of pairing. I mean, you know, we think, at least to start his NHL career, you know, Eklund is going to need that sturdy kind of top six center to sort of hang around with him for a little bit. And conversely, on the Couture side, which we've talked about, he's had a brutal combination of wingers the last 2 years. So, you know, maybe playing with a young kid that's got a lot of offensive talent will, you know, maybe that'll juice him as well.
Being very creative too.
And while big picture, William Eklund had a tough time putting up offense statistically last year, it's not like William Eklund didn't look like he could hang in the NHL even in the 9-game tryout last year. He just didn't get any goals. Right. But he was out there making plays, being an offensive force, because remember, the start of the season was pretty exciting. Fans were talking about, oh, this is the new look Sharks. And then when he was sent back to Djurgården, people were outraged about, how can you, he is bar none an NHLer here. So I think for sure he starts the season on the Sharks. I think he's going to have a chip on his shoulder because he didn't score his first goal of the season until I think March in Sweden.
Yeah.
So he's going to have a chip on his shoulder and wants to go out and prove that, yes, he can score goals and include, as well as setting up plays and being a fast skater. So, yeah, start him in the Sharks roster. And if it doesn't work out, it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Put him on the Barracuda. Because Bordelot, to me, also should start in the top 6, but there's probably not going to be room there for him to start
he's your 3C.
if Eklund is there. Yeah, I think so too. I'd still rather have Bonino there and move Bordelot to the wing, but
yeah, I mean, look, to me, I know, and Promnin was a little bit down in Eklund. I think he ranked the Sharks, 22nd as far as prospect pools go, and I don't know if I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on that, but like I'm not super upset about it because I do think like outside of Eklund, who I think is heads and tails above most of our other products, Bordelot included, like there's a lot of intriguing guys in the system, but like outside of Eklund, who did have it down, like you didn't probably have the season we were hoping he would have in Sweden.
Yeah,
like it, it's not fantastic, and I don't think they super bolstered their prospect pool in the most recent draft. Like again, we've talked about this too, where there's definitely picks that I'm intrigued by, but there's nothing, they didn't grab like that blue chip guy. Now maybe there wasn't going to be that blue chip guy when they traded back, and I'm really curious to look back at this draft that just happened in like 4 or 5 years and really see what's what.
This year's draft was I'm right now, and I think Jerk is as well. I'm doing my deep dive into the draft right now, and there are a couple teams. I still think Seattle had a fantastic draft this year, and I'm still a little frustrated by Sharks drafting Beasted at 27. But I'll tell you guys what, like the Sharks moving back this year made sense to me, even if I didn't like the player who they drafted with the first with their highest pick.
I just think if you change the order of those picks, I don't think I hate it so much either.
No, not at all. But if the Sharks did that next season, I'd have a big problem with that. Because you're right. Even at 11, although there are a lot of players who I really liked in that 11 range, I don't think any of them are game-breaking talent. And that's what the Sharks need. Right. So if the Sharks did it next year, where I project them to have a top 5 pick, I would be pulling out what little hair I have left in the front of my head. So. And
AO just saying, I think people touting Eklund as the next great hope is going to end up in disappointment. Please, no Mueller 2.0. I'm not, like, again, unless Eklund has, like, an awful season, like, again, I think Eklund is, like, if we were to do, like, a pyramid, which maybe we can do at some point, I don't know if we have enough time left, like, summer is quickly dwindling and the season quickly approaching, but, Eklund would be in that top tier for me. So I don't know.
Oh, for sure.
I'm not... I know there's definitely concerns looking at what happened in Sweden last year. Yeah, on be it a pretty bad Djurgården team. But I don't know, man. Like I'm still pretty optimistic on Eklund. I think like I said, I think he's head and tails above pretty much anyone else we've got in the system right now.
Eklund's not the player who you build your team around, but no. Eklund's the guy who pair with the guy you build your team around.
Bingo. Anything you want to add to that, Jerk?
No, I think you guys hit it all really well. I mean, I do agree. Eklund, I don't think, he's not Connor McDavid, right? But right. to kind of, I don't know, not that this is happening, but like to not allow people to be excited, I don't think is the right move either. You know what I mean? Like he's obviously, as you said, Ian, he's far and above the best prospect the Sharks have right now, and the best prospect they've had since Timo Meier, since Tomas Hertl.
I'd say since Hertl.
Yeah, probably since Hertl. And like as we've seen, Hertl in 2012, Meier in 2015, these guys don't come very often for the Sharks.
Right, exactly. But hey, they compare him with Nazem Kadri because he's on the Sharks now.
What site was that?
So Sports Forecaster, which was my go-to website for hockey information for ages, they've had 3 really bad years. And today they reported that Nazem Kadri signed a 1-year deal with the Sharks. So TTG 5?
Yeah, there you go.
You heard
sorry,
it here
Calgary.
first. Tell your friends.
Tell your friends.
Let's hope we make it through the rest of the podcast without hearing any more Kadri news.
We might. They did the official opening of the TextU Arena. Obviously, I don't think any of us were able to. I watched the little pressy and the finger cutting, the ribbon cutting, and everything. The finger cutting, Jesus. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty excited for the Barracuda to have a new home. Kevin, what does this mean for the Barracuda?
It means everything. It means done are the days of hearing about how the Sharks Arena, SAP Center, is the cavernous hall for the Barracuda to play in when they only draw a few hundred people per night. Even if the Barracuda draw only a few hundred people tonight, which might be like those weekday evenings or weeknights, that might be a little tough to get 4,000 people in. But just the overall buzz, the fact that we have media coverage now. Channel 2 talks about TextU Arena and Mike Greer being a GM, and NBC Sports, NBC Bay Area today, Channel 11, had news reports both in the morning and in their lunch hour, talking about the Barracuda, talking about TextU Arena. They had Nick Nollenberger on their freaking broadcast.
I saw that. Nice.
What? That's more media coverage than this team has ever had in the last 7 years. So they're going to be just fine here. The arena, just from the pictures, I don't like the color. It's a little too gray for me. But you know what? I'm going to be there on Friday, and I'm looking forward to it, and I hope to have rave reviews when I come back. Because just from the photos and everything, it looks pretty sleek. So color aside, I think it's a bang-on win for this team and for the city. You know, they get a secondary venue that not just for the Barracuda, but the figure skaters, for example. I mean, they're planning on hosting the U.S. National Figure Skating Championships there at some point, I'm assuming soon. So not something that they need a 17,000
I was going to say, because
arena
that for a long time was hosted at SAP, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And they would get, I think they would get like 10,000. Mm-hmm. So it's actually going to create more demand because it's like you only have 4,000 seats to get to sell here. So drive the prices up, get more people in, and it'll be a great event. But I know I think long term they hope to do some NCAA stuff there, not just San Jose State, but I mean like.
Well, I was gonna
make it a Western break. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah. Obviously, San Jose State is gonna be in there. We covered it. Teal Town put out a little thing at the time it was announced, but the AHL All-Star Game as well.
Yep.
Is coming, which is awesome. As you mentioned, the figure skating, but it's kind of even beyond that. Even things that don't involve wearing ice skates, like. Anytime, say there's, maybe a comedian comes to town, or kind of a smaller kind of a operation, maybe an improv show or magic show, variety show, that kind of stuff. With those sorts of events, you can convince me that 4,200 seats is more of an appropriate audience size for something like that. And so I think it's going to open the door for events for the city just beyond the Barracuda and San Jose State. You know what I mean? It's going to, truly be, I feel like we hear the term, all right, multi-purpose arena, but I feel like it will. I feel, like you said, Kevin, having the SAP Center be the size that it is, it can be a little bit daunting for some of your smaller performing groups. And so to have, have something like this as an option, I think would be really cool. Maybe, Kevin, I don't know, maybe NXT TakeOver San Jose goes there.
Okay, so on that note, because the TextU Arena is going to be a block away from San Jose State facilities, not campus, but facilities.
Right.
It makes me wonder about the future of the San Jose State Event Center, because that's similar size, and that is aging. So they do have this option, especially if they wanted to renovate it or rebuild the event center at some point. They could at least temporarily host some events there at TechCU Arena. So there's a lot of options there, and I'm looking forward to skating on the ice there. Like, honestly, that's the biggest thing I'm looking forward to in this upcoming season, is getting the opportunity to skate there on the Barracuda ice. But I think it's really cool that San Jose can now host claim to having the largest recreational ice facility in all of North America, not the U.S., not Canada, all of North America. That's right here in San Jose. So yeah,
and there's also a movement in the chat as well to have your league championship game be at TechCU.
Oh, okay. So the problem is we got to get there, brother.
There's a movement in the chat, but no, it's and being, I'm Kevin, I'm sure you can relate to this, but like being from San Jose, like I always, it's sort of a sense of pride to be like, yeah, like that's my city, that's my hometown.
Right.
I mean, and so
exactly.
to see the city get to do something cool like this, it's always kind of a good bump,
Exactly. And one of my favorite things, sorry, and I know
okay.
you want to say that. One of my favorite things about the entire presser was seeing John Gustafson do the ceremonial puck drop with his two sons. Just because John Gustafson has been like the mainstay, heart and soul back end guy for all of San Jose hockey for the last, I think they said 23 years. I mean, he was a San Jose Rhino. So I mean, his heart bleeds San Jose hockey, and so I think that was just fantastic to be able to see him get to do that with his family.
I mean, the thing I'm looking forward to most from all of this is, what are we going to blame for the crappy ice at SAP now? Because the Barracuda were the scapegoat for just the crap ice at SAP Center, which apparently hasn't gotten much better with all the work they've done.
Too much heat being generated from the new Jumbotron overhead. It's going to melt the ice and make it choppy.
Probably.
That's what's going to happen there at SAP Center.
I like that.
Maybe if Bon Jovi comes to town again, we can do that.
Oh, no. Hey, you know what? If Bon Jovi comes to town, we can't move to TechCU Arena again.
This podcast will never forget Bon Jovi ruining the Barracuda's franchise record-winning
14 game. Hashtag blame Bon Jovi.
We'll never forget.
Yeah, I think. I mean, obviously, outside looking in, I think it's awesome. It's obviously awesome for San Jose. It's awesome for the Barracuda to have. It's nice to play an arena with your own logo on the ice.
They can legitimately do pink in the rink now, because all the other AHL teams paint their ice pink for Pink in the Rink for breast cancer awareness. They can finally do that and not have to worry about what's going on with the Sharks.
I think having a more intimate setting for them is going to be great. And again, I just think, it's a nice new arena. So obviously I think it's going to bring people in. This is the year. Like, if you want to jump on the Barracuda bandwagon, this is the best year to do it ever since. I mean, this is, again, I don't think that this is a Calder Cup winning team going into the new arena, but they're going to be good. Like, this is the most excited I've been about the Barracuda since they moved.
18. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not that the fan base isn't there. In the deep playoff run, they drew 8,000 fans at SAP Center. So the fans are there. You just got to cater to them. And the moves that the Barracuda have made over the last 12 months have been fantastic, and I hope to see more of it.
Okay,
$1 hot dogs.
Yeah.
$2 hot dogs, $3 beers.
All right. So something I did want to talk about, one more thing, and then we'll get on to the Ducks here. Obviously, now we know what all the Barracuda sweaters are going to look like. So we never really talked about the Barracuda sweaters at all. So first one I've got up is the black one. Here's the only thing I don't like about the black one. I understand that word print across the front's very USA Hockey, so maybe I'm just a jerk. right? I like logos. I don't like word print. What are your guys' thoughts on the black one overall?
I like the black jersey. I actually think it's a nice jersey. I like the design, the shoulder patches, the striping, everything.
Love the shoulder patches. Yeah.
I'm with you, Ian. I'm not a fan of the crest, but it's not the reason that you're saying, and Kevin knows what I'm talking about. I hate the word CUDA so much. And now, would Barracuda look better there? Probably not.
No.
But no. I don't. It just reminds me of like when the Lightning had that jersey that said Bolts. It's like, you're not, like, that's not your team name.
I just punched a metal chair right now because Jerk took every word out of my mouth.
And I don't, and again, if it said Barracuda, does that make it better? I don't know. I don't think so. So I'm with you on that front. I think it should be a logo, but my ire comes from not liking the word CUDA.
No, I'm with you on that. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but if you ever follow me on Twitter at KevinLacy22, almost every time I will write out the word Barracuda. The only time I will ever just write CUDA is because I've run out of characters.
Mm-hmm.
I need those extra 5 characters. I can't do it. So for me, I'm with you on that. I'm not a big fan of how bland the sleeves are, the arms are. I think the one single stripe on there leaves a lot to be desired. It will help having numbers, jersey numbers on the sleeves as well, though. Yeah. That'll make it a little more prominent there. But I would be a huge hypocrite, and I don't want to talk bad about the Barracuda here, but I would be a huge hypocrite if I said those Tampa Bay Bolts jerseys freaking suck, and then say, oh, these CUDA jerseys are great because they're the Barracuda. Right. It just these jerseys, you will not see me wearing one of these. And it's not because it's black. It's for all the reasons that you just said. Plus the sleeves drive me nuts. So shoulder patches are awesome, though.
Shoulder patches are great. Yeah, I would be torn. Like if I was going to buy Barracuda sweaters, which I do want to do at some point, this would be the last one that I would buy.
Yeah.
And the other thing, and I don't know if this means anything, maybe it's just timing or whatever, but the white jersey and the steel jersey, which obviously we're going to talk about, the releases were for those, the pictures they sent out were like really beautiful pictures that really accentuated how awesome those jerseys are. And then with this, it kind of looks like it's like, oh, snap a picture with your iPhone and get it on the Twitter. Like, why didn't this jersey get a nice photo?
I guess it's hard to make black stand out, though. That's the only thing. But you're right. You're absolutely right. If anything, what they did with the black jersey was they showed a teal stripe. The only teal stripe that you can find on the whole jersey. That's what they showed.
That's right, yeah.
So it didn't meet the expectations for me on that.
Yeah. All right. So that brings us to the white sweater, which I like. I like this a lot. The only thing, my only issue with this sweater is, again, the logo. Like, I would use the logo that's on the steel sweater. Like, if that was on this one, sold in a second.
Absolutely. I thought that with the CUDA on the black jersey and the SJ on its own on the ice jersey, I thought that the steel jersey was only gonna have the fish logo, which I would have hated. I would have hated that because as much as Jerk knows I love the orange jerseys, I love the orange jerseys with the SJ and the fish on it. I really thought there was way too much orange on the last rendition that only had the fish logo. So I was worried that that's what they were going to do with the steel jerseys. I think the SJ is the big detriment to the ice jersey. Otherwise, even though I'm not the biggest fan of the teal shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
I can live with that. I love the striping on this.
Me too.
There's not just one stripe, there's 4. So there's plenty of striping, but I think it looks fantastic. I think the font choice that they chose on both jerseys, the ice and the steel, was great. I really like the ice jersey, especially, even despite the SJ. I think that's the one I'll go with, but I will reserve judgment for when I see them in person.
That's fair.
I'm going to disagree. Well, first things first, Kevin, I thought you said that you were expecting the steel jersey to say Barra on the front.
Why not country?
Right, exactly. But I am going to disagree with you on the crest. I understand that the SJ by itself, it's not something that everybody likes. I understand that. But I think the fact that it's predominantly teal, to your point, there's been, and I'm not going to comment on the jersey, but there has been what I would say too much orange in the past. And so I think this is nice. A little bit of orange is perfect, but nice predominantly teal I think is good. But as we talked about before, it's this whole, sort of the renovations to the arena, new jersey, new identity, all that kind of stuff. Like it almost feels bigger than just being an AHL hockey team. Like it feels like, like this is your commoners team, like they're for San Jose, it's for the people kind of thing. And I like that. But I like having, all 3 jerseys, they all have a different crest. And I love that because we've talked about it, where AHL jerseys, it's pretty much, take the NHL jersey, switch the patches and call it a day. And so to have jerseys that are completely different than the Sharks, but then to also have completely different logos and fonts and everything, I love it. I love all 3 of these. Now, my fiance would get mad at me if I bought all 3 of them, so I'm gonna have to pick one. But I think
2
or 3, I don't know, but
or 2.
But like they're all awesome in their own way,
Yeah.
And
3 truly unique jerseys,
right,
sweaters that still are able to identify that this is the Sharks franchise, the Sharks farm club.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's great.
I like the striping.
Overall, I think it's great. There are things that I nitpick, mostly with the black jersey, but there are things that I'll nitpick about all 3 of them. But overall, I think it's a win.
Yeah, I agree with what Dirk said. Like, I like that these are different looking from the parent club sweaters. They're not just new patches on the Shark sweater. I like the striping. I don't know. It's pretty unique, right? Now, I like that these sweaters are they not just a copy of the NHL club with different patches. They just look unique in general. Which brings us to the new steel ones that were released today. I love these.
Yep,
absolutely
me too.
Love these.
Would you say best of the 3?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, if I'm buying one, this is the one that I want. The only I like it. The only thing that I would maybe do a little differently is instead of having the Sharks logo on both shoulders, throw the fin on one of them, but the fin logo, the old fin logo. But other than that, that's really nitpicky. I love these. I love the logo. I really like that logo with the fish. I'm a big logo guy. So I like the fish logo. I like it.
I agree. I think this is the best of the 3, and it's almost kind of the, a perfect amalgamation of what we've all kind of wanted to see differently. Kevin wanted to see the logo, the full logo. Well, there you have it, and it's got, I'm a big fan, I understand white jerseys, but I don't know. I feel like there's almost no reason to purchase a white jersey because everybody wants the color of the team to wear it.
Right.
But I think this is nice. This is a good sort of meet in the middle because gray is a solid color, and but it's not white, and so I think this will attract people to it as well. And just the stripes. I mean, to your point, on the last one, the stripes are really nice, and we've seen them before, but it's not like this style of striping, but it's not something we see all the time.
Yeah.
And so I love it. As I said, I think this is the best of the three, and when this is not an ad, but they are available for pre-order, so I might have to poke on over and kind of put some eyes on something, because this is really sharp.
Yeah.
For me,
go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, if you're gonna do gray, this is how you do it properly, not like the reverse retro. The reverse retro is such garbage.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This jersey all day over the reverse retro, which I was never into to begin with. But I heard they're doing a reverse retro 2, which I can't get behind. But my nitpick on this gray jersey is that you've got that teal on the shoulders that really stands out. I would have liked the top stripe to be a teal stripe rather than a white stripe. Like, I feel like there's a little bit too much of that gray gradient from the shoulders down. But this is the jersey for me. This is the second best jersey. But this is the jersey that if I see it in person, I have a feeling I'm going to say, okay. All right, you got me. Because I said I had the same opinion about the Sharks black jersey, the Dan Boyle era Sharks black jersey. Where I was like, it's all right, it's decent. And then I saw it in person. I went, gimme. And I feel like the gray jersey is going to be like that. The only other thing for me, like I said, I would like more color in the building. Now you've got gray jerseys, a gray arena, gray seats, gray. Like, yeah, it's your identity. I mean, it's your color now. It's not flashy. That's the only thing. So
the Barracuda are preparing for a gray season.
There you go.
Oh, there you go. But the only thing is the Silver Knights also have gray jerseys, so that's the one thing.
What are our thoughts on no teal sweater?
I'm fine with it. Like, I love teal, don't get me wrong. Like, teal is my favorite color. But I'm fine with it, because again, it gives them a unique it gives them their own identity, which I think is such a huge part, especially this year. Like, because this year the Sharks are gonna be bad. I would want to be as little associated with the parent club as humanly possible this season.
That's fair. and Tiger,
the teal jersey, no teal jerseys. It's gonna take some time getting used to, but at some point they'll roll out a teal jersey.
Totally,
I have no doubt.
There's no way they won't. And Tiger also saying we will see a drunken Lacy at the arena in this jersey in 2 months.
Section 217, row 2.
There you go.
There you have it. Go find him.
So yeah, I mean,
Nick
like, I look at that.
If you're listening, go find him.
Nick Cicek I'm gonna end up getting hit by an errant puck off a crossbar.
Have you? I feel bad, but it's become like a daily mention in the Discord. Have you seen that?
I have seen it. I don't hate Nick Cicek. There are just a lot of things that way too much is made of Nick Cicek. That's all I'm going to say. But I don't hate him. I like him. I think he's got good offensive potential. I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to be a part of the fun in the Teal Town USA Discord, you should talk to Mr. Hockey_jerk on the Twitter machine, and he will get you guys sorted out.
Assuming I'm on Twitter. I've actually been trying to stay off Twitter this summer, but if I'm there,
yeah,
I'll hook you up.
For sure. All right, guys. Which brings us to the main event of tonight's show, which is our Anaheim Ducks preview. Let me give you a current rundown of the Anaheim Mighty Ducks. Or they're not the Mighty Ducks anymore. Jesus Christ, Ian.
They're certainly not mighty. I'm already going to tell you, I picked them 7th in the division.
Yeah, I don't know why I just called them the Mighty Ducks. Apparently it's 1990 again. All right, so the Mighty Ducks... I'm just going to call them Mighty Ducks the rest of the show. Just forget it. They're the Mighty Ducks. I don't care. The Mighty Ducks is way better than Ducks. Let's be honest. All right, the Ducks. They have $43,076,667 in that is their current cap hit, which leaves them with a projected cap space of $49,023,333, which means that if you think that this team is bad, they can only get worse. and they can do it in a spectacular fashion. The outs. Sonny Milano, as we mentioned earlier, Sam Steele, both not given qualifying offers. Zach Austin Reese is out. Vinny Lettieri is out. Jerry Mayhew is out. Dominic Simon and defenseman Andre Schuster. In Ryan Strome, Frank Vetrano, John Klingberg, and the internet's favorite defenseman, Olli Juolevi, who nearly died last year at Canucks training camp.
Oh, jeez.
That was my favorite thing. Was just like they were just doing like skates and like Olli Juolevi's like dying in the corner. So yeah, I mean,
playing for the Canucks might do that to you.
Jakob Silverberg is listed on the IR, and as far as I could tell, I went and did some digging around. Looks like questions are remaining on his status for the start of the season. So let's talk about the Ducks. Obviously, again, some interesting guys that they let walk as restricted free agents, which I think I was surprised by Sonny Milano getting walked. I think Sonny Milano never turned into the player I thought he was going to turn into when he was drafted, but I thought he found himself like a good second life in Anaheim.
Career year this year.
Yeah, like I just, he really gets one of those players where like a change in scenery just does the body good. I like all their additions. I really like. The thing that I don't understand about this team, and maybe it's because I've rated this team higher than maybe I should, but like this is a team where John Gibson is a guy that looks like they still want to trade. And when you look at Pat Verbeek, GM, he is not as high on his own team as I am on a team that I really dislike. Which kind of surprised me because I feel like he's of the mind that this rebuild is, I don't want to say nowhere near finished, but maybe not as close as people thought they were.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
I think it's absolutely fair. I think Pat Verbeek has really done a lot of head rolling this summer, and Milano I thought was a shoo-in to get a contract, and he didn't, and actually still hasn't, as far as I'm aware.
Right.
So yeah, he gutted the farm system and put Roy Sommer as their head coach.
That's right. I forgot about that.
So yeah, there's a lot still left to be desired with the Ducks, and there's, I think, a lot more movement coming. This Ducks team, I feel like, is almost in a way like a mirror of the Sharks roster, in that there's a lot of bottom six players, and they're younger than the Sharks, I think, overall. My opinion, they're younger overall. But they're going to be they bring in guys like Frank Vetrano, Ryan Strome, the pieces who are here now, so that when the Ducks can start moving forward, they'll be solidly ingrained in the Ducks culture. But there's a lot of players who I think are going to have to prove themselves this year, just like the Sharks. And so that's why I rank the Ducks as low as I have.
Yeah, it's really interesting to me. Just to your point, it almost seems like there's a conflicting sort of narrative on where the Ducks are at. I think, I don't think they're going to be, really challenging for the playoff spot. I'm with Kevin. I have them being in seventh as well, and I did refer to our show from last week. The Kraken, I said they were in sixth, so we're good there. I don't know if you saw, Kevin, but I said last week that I was going to say every team was going to be sixth in the division.
I did see that, yes.
But so I don't anticipate them to even really challenge for a playoff spot, but they're close. I definitely think they're closer than the Sharks, to tell you what. But I see what you mean, Kevin, talking about getting them ingrained into the system by the time they're ready to compete. But it just, you bring in Strome, you bring in Vetrano, you bring in a John Klingberg, three good veteran players who are probably at the point where they want to start, they're all, 28, 29, and 30, but probably want to start thinking about a Stanley Cup. And They come in and they sign, in the case of Stroman Vetrano, they sign multi-year deals, but then you turn around and, you let Sonny Milano go and you want to trade John Gibson. And there's a lot of sort of wishy-washiness going on with Max Comtois, which I don't understand that either. And so it feels like there's a lot of sort of conflicting narratives going on right now where like one day they're close and then the next day they're nowhere near.
It's an identity crisis. That's why Ian doesn't know whether the Mighty Ducks or the Ducks.
And I do wonder, and Kevin, I did want to get your opinion on it, but like what do you think is the story like with Max Comtois? Obviously he was really good, like that, I call it the hub year, the hub division year. And then last year, he's injured and he's getting healthy scratched. And, to me, if the Ducks have McTavish, they have Troy Terry, they have Zegras, but if they want to move forward, like to me, Comtois is just as important. And so I don't really know what the story there is.
I almost wonder if Max Comtois is replicating Sonny Milano's career in Columbus.
Yeah, could
where
be.
Maybe Comtois needs a fresh start here. Ian, what do you think?
I mean, I don't know what to make of that. And I'm looking at I'm looking at this team, right? And I'm looking at like this forward group. Like this forward group, the one thing that you can say about it is they've got a lot of flexibility in their forward group. Not a lot of long-term deals other than the deal that they signed for Ryan Strome. Like that's the longest deal they have on the books in their forward group. Frank Vetrano's the next one with 3 years, but other than that, it's 1-2-year deals. So he's going to have a lot of flexibility to change the look of this roster pretty quickly. Now, I'm not saying they're going to get rid of all these guys, obviously, right? Like a lot of these guys, they're going to need to take steps to be, I think like, they've got one of the most dynamic players in the league in Trevor Zegras. And obviously he's going to be there for the long haul. But like, this forward group, other than that though, like it doesn't really scare me either. But again, and their defense, the same thing, Cam Fowler's their longest signed guy, and they're not really hobbled. The other thing that I like about the Ducks too is they're not really hobbled by a ton of no trades. They're not hobbled by no moves at all. Like everyone has no trades. Now, are those conditional no trades with probably minimum amount of terms that they can go to? Probably. But I mean, again, I still think this team should be better. Like I think Pat Verbeek should think this team is in better shape than it is.
When you're talking about the defense, my big takeaway on that is, so poor John Gibson has just been bludgeoned over the last 2 seasons, hanging in the first half of the season, being an all-star type goalie the first half of the season, and then he peters out the second half because he's having to make 45 saves every single night because the defense can't stop anything in Anaheim. And this defense group right now still seems very one-dimensional in terms of they're all offensive defensemen. Who's going to provide the actual defense on this defense core? Like John Klingberg's a cool signing for them, I think, because what Hockey Jerk said about like why would these players not be shooting for cup aspirations, for example. John Klingberg, you'd think he'd be right there, and instead he takes a 1-year deal with Anaheim. Now it's only a 1-year deal, and what I think about it that's cool for the Ducks is they get 1 year, kind of like Taylor Hall in Buffalo. That 1 year they went horribly wrong. John Klingberg gets an opportunity to see how he likes Anaheim. Anaheim gets to see how well he fits in and whether he can bring a defensive style to his game as well. It bides more time for Jamie Drysdale to eventually become the first pair offensive defenseman. But if it doesn't work out, the Ducks trade him and they get more assets as part of their rebuild. So I think it's a win by the Ducks in that regard. But overall, I don't know if I can really be excited about the Ducks. But they're going to probably drive a lot of their offense from the back end and Trevor Zegras and Troy Terry and Vetrano. but they don't have a lot of offensive depth in their forwards, and they don't have a lot of defensive depth in their defense. So I don't know where they're going.
Yeah, it is very interesting. I do want to throw it out there. I don't know if you guys saw, but breaking news: Phill Kessel, 1-year deal to the Golden Knights.
Okay. How do they make that cap
The
hit
cap
fit?
isn't real. We've already.
I'm
No,
sure
it's $1.5 million, but
okay. I figured it was about
but
that.
that's
Right?
and you know what? Kind of going back to our conversation earlier, and then obviously we'll get back on the Ducks. But like, that's to me, that's kind of those sort of guys that a team like Vegas should be targeting. Guys who have skill, but they're not going to command a lot of money this year. So I think, you know, I know it's the fun thing, it's the easy thing to hate Vegas, but if you're a roster building guru, I think you appreciate this deal.
I do.
Yeah. Cool. Just wanted
I just
to put it
laughed
out
because I just laughed because I forgot Phill Kessel was still on the market.
there. Yeah. Took them long enough.
But yeah. But what are your thoughts on John Gibson though? Because I think this is like the looming shadow of this team this year, and they do have Dahlen in the minors, and Stolar's had a pretty good year last year, even though I'm not a big fan of his per se. But the looming shadow for me is what's going to happen with John Gibson.
I thought, and we even talked about it on a show that we did. I don't even remember. It was this version of Teal Tinted Glasses. I know that much, but where we basically said, okay, the Ducks are probably going to trade John Gibson, or at least they want to trade John Gibson. I thought before Edmonton and signed Jack Campbell, I thought that's where John Gibson was going to end up, was in Edmonton. And I thought it was going to be, you know, Anaheim would take Stuart Skinner back because, to your point, Kevin, they don't really have the deepest goalie pool. And
I think Dahlen can do it.
Yeah,
but
I like
outside of that,
Dahlen. I do like
Sure.
Dahlen.
But it doesn't hurt to have multiple options.
For sure.
I guess that's what I'm saying.
right.
And I think
Or 6 if you're the Sharks.
right. And I just wonder, like, it just, I don't know, as I said earlier, it's just very weird to me. Like, I know he's had a brutal couple of years, but I still think John Gibson is one of the best goalies in the league right now. He's easily in the top 10, but, you know, I think I put him on the same level as Connor Hellebuck, both really good goalies. And it just goes back to what I said a few minutes ago. Like, what are the Ducks doing? Like, are they going to try and make the playoffs? Are they not? Because regardless of what you think your timeline is and, you know, who you're signing and who you're trading for, like, it doesn't make much sense for the Ducks to hold on to John Gibson if, you know, it happens to be the day that Pat Verbeek wakes up and thinks the Ducks are not close at all. And I don't know. I kind of feel like at this point it's going to be another year of John Gibson's stats cratering because the team in front of him is just not very good.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to that.
Yeah, I mean,
as a Sharks fan, I am, but
I have to enjoy someone else's misery. John Gibson, to me, like, here's the issue with John Gibson, right? Is like, and I wonder if this is gonna take longer than they think. Then, like, you know, John Gibson's 29 now. Like, he's not getting any younger, and I just wonder, like, aging curves for goalies suck. There's a lot of goalies, you know, once they hit that 30 and they get over 30, that is where a lot of guys get off the bus. As far as being, like, you know, elite starting goaltenders. And I just wonder, if you keep him, is he still going to be John Gibson when this thing turns around? Or worse, if you don't move him, do you lose what little value goalies have? Because let's be honest, like, NHL goalies don't get traded for a whole lot in general. Especially at the deadline. The deadline, they move for nothing.
Yeah. Well, after Ryan Miller got traded for all those picks that 1 year,
right?
It's like all teams all vowed to never do that ever again. So you're right.
So I just, like, and I love John Gibson. I think John Gibson's a hell of a goalie.
Same.
But I still worry as that age gets up there. I just wonder, you know, again, is he the guy that's going to be there when this is over? I'm not sold.
I just kind of feel like if the plan is to trade Gibson, that, you know, they missed their chance. Like, if I'm Pat Verbeek, I'm looking at all these teams that need a goalie, and I'm saying, hey, don't stress yourself out with free agency. Just trade for my guy.
Yeah.
And again, I just feel like the time has passed, and I don't know, another year of the Ducks just being in a, I don't want to say purgatory, but just kind of a weird place.
You know who it sounds like? Brent Burns.
Right. Yeah, I mean, because the thing is, like you said, Ian, John Gibson's a really good goalie, but what if another year of the Ducks being brutally defensive in front of him completely craters his numbers, and a team buys him for, forget pennies on the dollar, like, you know, like quarters of a penny and, you know, eighths of a penny on the dollar. Like, you talk about a guy whose value has completely plummeted, not by his own fault. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. The only thing that worries me too with John Gibson, when you want to move him, right? Like he might be the guy that's signed for the longest. Next to Ryan Strome, John Gibson's the guy they have signed the longest. So I think like as well, like we mentioned off the top, like the Ducks have a ton of cap space to use, but eventually, look at Trevor Zegras is going to get a huge deal, right? Yeah. So you don't want to be moving a guy like John Gibson, you have signed for another 5 years, and then like eating a massive cap hit for John Gibson for the next 5 years, depending on how long you think this is going to go.
And you know what? So Comtois, Terry, Zegras, and Drysdale all need new deals next summer.
Correct. And like Trevor Zegras is going to ring the bell. Let's be honest.
Yeah, so Troy Terry probably will as well.
Terry having a career year last year, finally breaking out. If he stays with Trevor Zegras there, he'll get paid as well. Mm-hmm. And as you mentioned, Ian, the Ducks have the room to pay him out. It's just that internal thing about how they don't give out large salaries and all that jazz.
Yeah, it's gonna be fascinating to see, because I think like Trevor Zegras, I think he gets talked about enough, but I feel like could you imagine if he was in a market that's not Anaheim? Like how much bigger would he be?
Well, and I literally saw a tweet today. You know, he was taken one pick after Philip Broberg. Imagine him on a line with McDavid.
Oh.
Hey, Trevor Zegras, congratulations, because it leaked out that he is the new cover guy on NHL 23 along with Sarah Nurse,
which is awesome.
And so that's even more Skrilla for Zegras there, and reigning in the new the new error in Anaheim. So.
Yeah.
For tongue and if you don't know what I'm talking about, watch the Barracuda video.
All right. So talking about the future, obviously with the Anaheim Ducks, look at this team. This is a team that's loaded with prospects. Mason McTavish, Jacob Perreault, Jamie Drysdale, who are, still a guy that I would still put on that list. Sasha Pastujov, Pavel Mintyukov, and Bogru, and then again, and we mentioned Dostal there too, which I think is going to be a guy like. So this is a team that's flush with prospects. You look at their draft picks, again, a ton of draft picks. They got their first, they have their second, they have Boston's second, they have Colorado's second, they have their third, Minnesota's third, a fourth, a fifth, and a sixth. So obviously they've got
for now,
and that could only get better, right? There's the future looks good. I think when you look at this team, though, I think them gutting their development system was probably something they needed to do, though, because I feel like the Ducks have had a lot of prospects who we've on this show in previous years have been like, oh man, yeah, that's going to be a guy. And outside of a few, I feel like they've had serious issues with developing their top prospects. That
you're bang on. And I know this goes back to when Bob Murray was the GM. Yeah. Bob Murray even wanted to have heads roll down in the farm system, and he tried a couple of things, but it didn't work out. But I know he put a lot of stock in all the kids that we talked about in previous years, and very little panned out.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, so that's something that I think, it's a good thing to have prospects, but and I've said this a billion times too, right? Like, you can make all the right picks, but if you can't develop those players, then it's one half of the equation. And I think it's something that this is why I was so hard on the Sharks development, because I feel like the Sharks for a long time were in a similar situation where, I'm not saying they've never developed anybody, but I think some of the players they've some of the guys that I think they've made decent picks, and then they just couldn't turn around and develop them. And I think the Anaheim Ducks had that problem maybe a little bit worse when you look at them, because I think, again, like, you look at some of the players they picked, and maybe some of it was picking the wrong guy. It'd be interesting to go back and really do a deep dive on that. But yeah, I think, gutting your development system is probably something that I think Anaheim had to do. Putting Roy Sommer there doesn't inspire confidence, but, but it was something I think they had to do.
And you know what? Even look at the guys that have flourished into really nice players since leaving Anaheim. Mm-hmm. I mean, so everybody can say how they knew, I knew Shea Theodore was good when, he was on the San Diego Gulls. But, like, the reason why Anaheim...
Hey, wait a minute. I did know that.
Well, yes. Even though we are all Kevin, not everybody is Kevin.
Okay.
Like,
That's a good callback.
Part of the reason why they felt so comfortable giving him up to the Golden Knights was because, in my estimation, they'd felt like he had plateaued, and they had a handful of defensemen above him who were better. And you look at Marcus Pettersson. They traded Marcus Pettersson for Daniel Sprong. Pettersson looks really good for Pittsburgh. Daniel Sprong, I think, is barely in the NHL at this point. I believe
he's not.
I was going to say, I believe he's either signed a deal with the Kraken or was on the Kraken, but
he's not. On the Kraken, he's gone.
Year, but he's not there
so anymore. Exactly, like guys who have had to leave the Ducks organization in order to flourish, in order to have a better career, and I'm sure you can find other examples of it as well. So, to your point, Ian, it seems like, maybe on the outside, some might say, wow, it's a bit rash to completely gut your farm system, but based on the evidence, it's, like you said, it's probably exactly what was needed to, get things back on track.
Yeah, and that's the one thing. I'm glad you brought up, like, Shea Theodore, though, because, like, I think that was the one thing that they did pretty decently. Was kind of like their calling card, was like kind of like Nashville, like we can do defensemen.
It was a farm forever.
It was an absolute farm for defensemen, for NHL defensemen for a long time. I think that's the one thing they got right. I think it was just on the forward side where things didn't really work out as much as they wanted to.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I mean, which brings us to the question: are the Ducks on the right or wrong path? I don't know what path they're on. That's the problem I have with this team. I don't know what path they're on. Like, there's things where I think, again, like, I think gutting their development system was probably something that was long overdue. But then you bring in Roy Sommer, and I'm not a big fan of that move for anyone, honestly. Again, they have some really good players in their prospect pool. It's just an issue of getting those guys to prime time. I think if these guys turn out, if some of these guys turn out the way they should, and especially with some of, like, the depth of prospects I think they have, like, again, this should be a team on the come up. I just don't know if they're as confident in that as I am.
Maybe you should be their GM.
Maybe I should be.
Hey, when the Ducks came up for who to rank in the division, I thought I was going to be ranking them right around 5th. And then when I looked at their roster and the moves they made, and they kind of went backwards in a way, and I guess they did go backwards because I dropped them 2 spots in my ranking there. But you're absolutely right. Like, which direction are they going? Up, down? It's like Pat Verbeek is doing a rebuild of the Ducks rebuild. Yeah. Like, they were already starting to rebuild, and then when he came in, he's like, I already don't like how this is going. So I'm going to borrow a line from one of my favorite movies, History of the World Part 1, where it's like Pat Verbeek is there, says, you men go to the left, you men go to the right. I'm going to stand around here and walk in a circle. that's the Ducks. Like, I don't know. I don't know. I think in a year they're going to be on the right path, but right now they're just teetering.
Hockey jerk, do the Ducks have their ducks in a row?
You know what? I know I was a bit bearish earlier on them just because it seemed like they were trying to, similar to what I said with the Kraken, it seemed like they were trying to have their cake and eat it too, where they wanted to have good players but also like trade away other good players for future assets. The only reason I say the Ducks are on the right track is because, in not choosing a direction, they've not made the wrong choice. They've made no choice, And so I think by that logic, yeah, and they have, they're in a good position where say their hot start last year actually continues through the whole season and they're a good team. They have draft pick capital to make themselves better. Say it's completely awful like we all think it will be and they end up in 7th place. They can trade Klingberg, they can trade Shattenkirk, they can trade Max Comtois if they want to, or they can trade Derek Grant for the 3rd time and acquire more future assets that way, prospects, picks, maybe even young NHL players. Like I feel the Ducks, they haven't made their choice yet, but I feel like either way, I feel like they're going to make the right choice. Like whatever they choose, it'll obviously, it's not like the Sharks choosing to be competitive when they have like the worst team in franchise history. Like I literally think whatever the Ducks choose will be the right choice because they have the pieces to do both.
I feel like, yeah. And to kind of just conclude on that thought for me, like there's a foundation there. I think at least they have a foundation to build off of, which is less than I can say for other teams that are in similar situations as they are. Where do they finish? I mean, to me, this team, I guess 7th to me, I think. I'm pretty sure I said Seattle 6, yes?
Yeah, we both did.
Yeah, so they're 7th. They're number 7 to me. I think them and the Sharks are going to be in a race to the bottom of the Pacific.
You know what, though? Ducks swim on top of the water.
That's true.
And the sharks swim in the water.
That's true. I still think they're on a race to the
water.
bottom. Like I don't know. It's hard, right? Because I look at this roster and I'm like, are they better than the Sharks? Like, there's definitely pieces that I like, but
yeah,
I don't. I'm not confident that like I can definitely see a world where the Anaheim Ducks finish worse than the Sharks.
Yes.
See. Yeah, I could too, but you know what? At the same time, I think if you're comparing the Sharks and the Ducks, I think their depth is very similar.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the Ducks' elite talent is significantly better than the Sharks.
Yeah.
And I think that'll prove to be the difference. If Terry and Zegras and Drysdale, if those guys even maybe Mason McTavish gets a full year. Mm-hmm. If those guys carry the water for the Ducks, yeah, they're going to miss the playoffs, but it's going to be like this past year where they're still in the hunt around the All-Star break. If those guys, if they hit a rookie wall or if they're not there yet or if they don't progress, I think we'll know by Canadian Thanksgiving that they're not going to be a good team.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to I'm gonna stick with 7th, but I can see a world where they can finish, where they could be in 8th. Because to me they're a John Gibson injury away from 8th.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I think they're also a John Gibson hot run away from 6th or 5th.
Sure. Yeah. Then I think that's absolutely fair.
I think that's all fair. Absolutely. Since you mentioned Mason McTavish, jerk. We didn't even have this on our rundown tonight, and our show is already running very long, like we always do. How about that goal line save by Mason McTavish in overtime of the gold medal game?
That was
my word.
That was incredible.
Think that the 3-on-3 20-minute overtime is like the greatest idea in the history of hockey. I wish everyone would do it because I think it's just fun.
It still only needed like 3 minutes, but it was, my word, what a stop. I remember twice, I think. Patrick Marleau had goal line saves out of the air in overtime, but not on the stage that Mason McTavish just did it on. World Junior Championships gold medal game. And then for Canada to go the other way and 2 plays later score the winning goal, Kent Johnson.
Yeah.
That was a great goal too.
Hell of a sequence.
Way to stick with it. So like, wow.
Yeah, I was really bummed. I was really bummed when the U.S. got upside by Czechia, just because like after everything Bordelot had gone to get there, I didn't want him to get gold because I'm Canadian, so F you guys. But I would have liked to have seen him at least medal after everything he went through to finally get to the World Juniors, to get upset in the quarters like that and leave empty-handed. That kind of bummed me out for him a little bit.
Yeah, well, he can just win a cup in San Jose
fair enough, you know.
many years from now. So,
just a couple of quick things around the division here. The San Jose Sharks again signed Nazem Kadri. Good for them. No.
Yeah.
He signed with the Calgary Flames, 7 years, $7 million AAV.
What? When?
Before your website said it was with the Sharks.
Okay.
In a corresponding move, Calgary traded Sean Monahan and a conditional 2025 first round pick. And these conditions, I wish I had, I should have grabbed a roll of toilet paper or something so I could drop it in front of the camera and to give you an idea of how long this list of conditions is. To the Montreal Canadiens, for my very most favorite player in the league, future considerations. I could read through this, but I'm not going to. I have kind of a summed up, and I'm hoping that the summed up is going to be better. Because if I read this, I swear to God, this show is going to be another 45 minutes. And I don't think we'll be any smarter for it. So the conditions. 1. If Calgary's 2024 first-round pick is between 20 and 32, Montreal can take that pick instead. Scenario. If Calgary receives Florida's 2025 first-round pick, both Calgary and Florida, and if Calgary and Florida's picks are not in the top 10, Montreal will receive the better of the Calgary and Florida 2025 first-round picks. If Calgary's pick is in the top 10 and Florida's pick is not in the top 10, Montreal receives Florida's pick. Scenario number 2. In the event Calgary does not receive Florida's first-round pick, number 1. If Calgary's pick is not in the top 10, Montreal will receive the Calgary pick. If Florida's pick is not in the top 10 and is the better pick than Calgary's and was transferred to another team due to prior conditions, Montreal will also take Calgary's 2024 fourth-round pick. If Calgary's pick, number 3, if Calgary's pick is first overall, Montreal will receive Calgary's 2025 third and the better of Calgary's and Florida's 2026 first-round pick. Number 4. If Calgary's pick is second to 10th, Montreal will receive Calgary's 2025 first-round pick. Are we confused?
Solve for why.
Are we confused?
Let me say this. I'm glad it was Calgary and Montreal who did this and not the Vegas Golden Knights, because they'd be screwing that one up.
Oh my goodness. I know. I think Cap Friendly had just the actual list of the conditions with all the legal ramblings with it. It's honestly, It's bigger than our notes for this show. It's just dumb. Earlier in the show, Phill Kessel apparently got signed by the Vegas Golden Knights 1.5 at 1 year. I guess Phill Kessel's been a guy who's been incredibly durable. I know I saw AJ in the chat bringing up that he's got one of, I think, the longest Ironman streaks in the NHL. So I think it's a good sign for a team that cannot stay healthy. It's a good signing. I like Phill Kessel. I think that he's a guy who probably, look at the road in front of Phill Kessel is much shorter than is obviously much shorter than the road behind him at this point in his career. So I think taking a swing on going to Vegas, I think Vegas is going to be an interesting team this year. I'm not 100% sold they're a playoff team, but I think they can be. They should be. It's going to be fascinating to see what they do in goal and how that works out for them. I don't know. Good for him.
Yeah, I think I think this is a good signing for Vegas. Like I said earlier, the Golden Knights, they need bodies who are inexpensive and talented. It's an incredibly short list, and Kessel's on that list. And so, again, if you're a fan of roster building, this is an awesome signing for the Vegas Golden Knights. I mean, they gave Max Pacioretty away for free, and obviously those two players are very different. However, Phill Kessel is still a good player, and so, he is going to be counted on to replace some of the offense that departed with Max Pacioretty. As you said, Ian, Robin Lehner is on the long-term injured reserve. He's not even going to play this season. Larry Brassard just had surgery as well. A little bit of a question mark there.
Well, Peter Bohr said both will be ready by Sunday.
Right. But I just think, and I don't know that anybody would ever come out and say this, but I do wonder if the plan is like, hey, our goaltending situation is a bit of a nightmare right now. We just need to make sure we score a lot of goals.
Hey, Logan Thompson's a legit prospect, though.
Oh, absolutely.
He was very good. And I know you know that, but I think that a lot is being made over the Vegas goaltending situation when it doesn't necessarily need to be. Now, if Thompson goes out there and just has a horrible start to the season, there is every reason to be concerned if you're a Golden Knights fan. But I think right now, even without Lehner for the season, they're fine with Thompson. Brossoit is a guy who gets paid way too much to play 3 games a season. So they'll be all right. But back to the Kessel signing, yeah, I think it's a good move. They need players. They need cheap players, or who can still contribute. The Sharks are in the same division, and we saw what Phill Kessel did to the Sharks as a member of the Coyotes when they were in our division. And yeah, so Kessel's going to be just fine. It's going to be a good fit, I think, here.
It's such a low risk deal too, because I don't see how in this universe that we live in you don't get $1.5 million worth out of Phill Kessel, even at this point in his career.
Well, and even he was kind of the forgotten star last season. I mean, didn't move at the trade deadline, obviously didn't sign right away, and so there was, I feel like you had a lot of people saying, oh well, maybe this is it for Phill Kessel. He didn't go anywhere, he didn't sign anywhere, but guy had 51 or 52 points last year, and again, like if 52 points is a bad year or a career-ending year, okay, I'll take it. You know what I mean? Like, that's solid for, and to your point, Ian, at $1.5 million, like even if he only gives you 30 points, that's $1.5 million worth, if you ask me.
Yeah.
How much is Nico Sturm making this season?
Nico Sturm is making, I know he's making more than Kessel. He's making $2 million.
Yeah, I know. That was my point. Right. And I like Nico Sturm, but
and you know what? With Phill Kessel, like you just look at the way Vegas is built. Obviously, I don't know why, but I think keeping the misfit line together is still really important to them. And so now you have a situation where you can do Mark Stone and Jack Eichel with Phill Kessel. Like,
that's not even fair.
He's gonna the amount of secondary assists that he's gonna pick up is gonna be insane.
Yeah.
It was asking why didn't the Sharks sign Kessel? Because he's not a third liner. Duh.
Well, and also
because Kevin LeBank's gonna rebound.
Oh, that too.
Oh.
Yes, of course. He's gonna score 40 goals this year.
My goodness.
So they say.
Yeah.
Many people are saying.
Yeah, just going back to Vegas on the goalie front there, I think like Logan Thompson's a guy I really like, and I've said that on this show many, many times, but you're asking a lot of a guy who has 19 NHL games under his belt so far.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's going to be fascinating. Vegas is coming up. I don't even know who's next. Who is next on this little series of ours. Let me go find the old standard.
Would that be? I mean, would technically be the Sharks, but we don't want to talk about them.
They're
would be the Canucks.
Oh, we are. Okay, so Vancouver's next. That's gonna be interesting. I'm excited for that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited. So there you go. Next week, Vancouver.
Yeah, same place, same time, right? Wednesday at 7.
Yep. Yeah, we can do that. Yep.
There it is.
There you
So
go.
everybody set your calendar.
All right. Kevin, Lacy, final thoughts.
Final thoughts are, you read off so many conditions in that trade that I've lost all my daylight that I had at the start of the show. So I got nothing else to add other than I do plan on being at TechCU Arena on Friday, I think in the evening, since I wasn't able to make it out today, and it should be pretty awesome. I'm excited. So say hi if you see me there, and I'm on Twitter at KevinLacy22.
And if they don't see you there, should they still say hi?
They should at least follow me and say, "Hey, I'm sorry I missed you, but here's a follow."
There you go.
There you go. So real, for, I guess, part of my final thoughts, something I did want to address, and Kevin, I'm sorry. Marty T wants to know. He was late to the show. Marty T wants to know.
Is this a Nick Cicek thing again?
He wants to know if Nick Cicek locked you out of your house.
I'm banging on the window with the broom handle here. Jeez.
Final thoughts.
If Nick Cicek wants to say hi to me at TechCU Arena on Friday, I'll be just fine with that.
Yeah,
good.
That's gonna be So final thoughts. I think, as you said in the description of the video, Ian, news is kind of slowing down to a trickle.
And yet we still managed to go.
Right. Well, and I think that's why, doing our little, division, whatever you want to call it, the little division previews, I think it's really fun. It's not, I know, every time we've talked about a team that's not the Sharks, we seem to piss some people off, but I think it's kind of fun to, I mean, I'm assuming it's fun for other people to say, oh, what are these guys who don't care about my team? What do they think about it? And I always enjoy getting to do these just because it's a different pace. It's a different perspective. And I think it's fun. I do think we got a couple of hitters coming up. I think Vancouver and Vegas are going to be really interesting to talk about. So with that in mind, again, I'm not really doing Twitter all that much during the summer. Like, I check it, at night. But if you want to be there when I come out of my Twitter hibernation, at @hockey_jerk on Twitter, nowhere else, just Twitter. That's all I have to say. I don't know. There's not really a lot going on over there. So maybe if you want to follow me on October 1st, that's okay.
There you go.
I know what wait, can I get one final thought in? An actual final thought in?
Of course.
TJ Hensick laid the boom on Bobby Farnham in the 3-ice finals.
He did. That was a wild hit.
TJ had, so basically the 3-ice
former
tournament
Barracuda
I alluded to earlier. That's right. Thank you, Joe Will, for your signing of TJ Hensick once upon a time. 3-ice tournament finals were happening over the weekend. Congrats to Team Trottier for upsetting Team Mullen. But there's no checking allowed in that tournament, and Bobby Farnham hit TJ Hensick close to the boards. And TJ Hensick, who, if I recall, had under 20 career hits in over 100 NHL games. So that should show you how physical TJ Hensick was. He was pissed, and he dropped Bobby Farnham. And they both got tossed from the game. But I'm going to be posting a video of it on my Twitter here probably tomorrow. So
there you go.
Stay tuned there. So that's the real advertising. That's the real advertisement. All right, I'm done.
All right. My final thoughts. I mean, again, I appreciate you guys coming and hanging out with us during the absolute dog days of summer because, again, news is slowed down to a trickle. I think we made a lot out of what little Sharks news there was this show more than I thought we would. So I'm I'm excited about that. But I really appreciate you guys hanging out and supporting us and continuing to support us. Means the world to me. Like I said, next week, same bat time, same bat channel. Come back and hear us ramble about the Vancouver Canucks, because that is what we're going to do. As always, if you have something, though, that you think that we should be discussing, you can hit me up on the Twitter machine. I am a little more on Twitter than Mr. Hockey Jerk, especially when it's hockey related. Like I will come out of hibernation to talk hockey at any time. At Ian Blogs Hockey on the Twitter machine, if you have something that you would like us to address or discuss or anything like that, either tweet it at me, DM me, whatever, and we will definitely throw it on the roundup and definitely continue talking about it. Other than that, obviously, you can find us all on Teal Town USA. You can follow, obviously, Teal Town USA. Again, you can hit us up on the social medias at Teal Town USA on pretty much all the social media. Again, you can get this show in audio format. If you do get this show in audio format, please leave us a 5-star review and let us know we're good. I mean, if you don't want to leave us, if you want to leave us a 2-star review, that's fine too. I mean, be honest, it's fine. I'm a big boy. I can take it. If you want to help us here on the Twitter, on Twitter, but on YouTube, leaving us a like on the video is awesome. If you hit the bell, you can find out anytime when we go live, which is usually never when we say we are, at least for Teal Tinted Glasses anyway. But the like button helps us a huge amount. And, again, if you have something that you think we got wrong or just, want to leave us a comment, definitely do that. I respond to comments all the time on this channel. So if you want to leave us a comment, that is great. All that helps us with the algorithm. It makes sure when people start looking for Sharks related content, they find us. And that is that is important, obviously, because it makes what we do worthwhile. Other than that, though, guys, I super appreciate you all being here, and I hope we will see you on the next Teal Tinted Glasses. Thank you, and good night.